Hey everybody, welcome back to Unpinned Creative. You've got voiceover Karen today because real-time Karen can't speak and create at the same time. So today I am working on the cover of this journal that I'm making. This is the next journal I'm making, and as I mentioned yesterday when I was showing you the collection of journals, this journal is going to be quite a bit lighter and brighter than what I normally do. So this was a cover that was given to me by a very good friend. It was a diary that she had used and was finished with, and she thought the cover was so cool I could probably do something with it. So that's what I'm doing. I love the artwork on this cover. The first thing I did was give it a bit of a wipe over and then removed the elastic that was the original closure. And now I am going to, because I want to keep the artwork that's on it, I don't want to cover it up. So I'm going to cover the journal with a layer of chiffon fabric. The original cover is a creamy white, and the chiffon that I'm putting on top is a bluey green. And to do that, I am just using a really good thick layer of Mod Podge all over the cover. And then I am going to lay down the chiffon over the top. I don't want the chiffon to be completely flat. I would like it to add some texture to the cover. So initially my thought was that I would wrinkle it up like I do tissue paper when I'm using tissue paper in my crafting, but that didn't work with this journal. So I pressed it all flat, made sure it had a really good layer of Mod Podge on it, and then manipulated the fabric by pushing it together to create these little air bubbles. Then when I dried it with my heat gun, I kind of pressed the air bubbles down and it gave this more wrinkly effect. I really love how it turned out, and especially the back cover. Now I am just going to Mod Podge the edges over onto the inside of the cover. And I'm just going to leave them like that. I'm not going to cover them up. These cover sheets on the inside were the original ones to the book. I haven't changed those, but I did add a layer of white tissue over the top, and I really love how it looks like water now, like water on the ocean. So that is kind of guiding my colors and everything for the rest of the cover of this journal. Alrighty, time to add a bit more color and some depth. So I am just grabbing a blue distress ink, and I'm going to use my paddle brush to go over the top of those wrinkles and give them a bit more color, make them stand out a bit more, add some more texture and dimension to this. On the front cover, I mainly did the texture around the outside, leaving the middle part flat, and that's because I'm going to be adding something into that a little bit later. I also inked around the edges of the journal just to darken them up a wee bit more, and also along the spine, as you can see here. So I'm loving how that has turned out. It has added a bit of grunge, which you may be guessing I am really into. So yep, so that's just how I like to do things. So I'm really loving how that back cover is looking and the texture that it gives you. I really like tactile journals that you just want to run your hands over all the time and pick up and look more closely at. So you'll probably notice that if you stick around and watch some more. Now this is the piece that I'm going to be adding to the middle of the journal. It is a laser cut wooden piece, a goddess that my friend who gave me the journal also gave me, and I love her so much, and I'm going to pop her in the middle here. If you don't happen to have a laser cut wood die cut, You can use cardboard, you know, whatever you have around. This is really just to give you some ideas of ways to approach things. I am adding some of this textile, sort of fibrous textile here. This is something I believe florists use. I picked it up in an op shop, as so many of my crafting supplies come from op shops. So I managed to find this. It is kind of a creamy yellowy color, very neutral. So I'm just cutting that to size, and it's just going to fit inside that square, printed square on the front cover there. And I'm not really going to do too much to that other than trim it and cut it to size. So before I glue that down properly, I need to zhuzh up the goddess, and to do that I'm going to use some distress inks. I grabbed 3 different blues. They were all the blues I had, and then for some randomness, because I love being a little bit random, I am going to add in a tiny bit of purple at the end. So the way I'm going to colour her with the distress inks is I'm going to use a tiny piece of acetate, or a small piece of acetate that I cut out of some packaging, and then just press that down onto the ink pad and then onto the goddess. Now I'm starting with the darkest blue ink, but in hindsight I realise I should have started with the lightest blue ink. So that's something to think about for next time, or if you're going to use this technique. So I'm just randomly putting that colour all over the goddess, leaving some space, and then moving on to the next colour and doing the same thing, pressing it down into the ink pad and then pressing it onto the wooden die cut. I'm hoping that this will give me kind of a watery effect as well with the 3 different blues. This is the lightest blue. I feel like, yeah, it would have been better if I had used the lightest blue first and really covered her mostly in that colour, and then just added the darker ones for some depth. But anyway, c'est la vie. This is the way I've done it, and she's turned out okay, I think, in the end. So once I've done that, then I'm just going to, this is what she looks like. Turned out pretty awesome, I think, kind of what I was going for. And then I just wanted to add a little bit of randomness and interest by bringing in the purple. So just using the same technique, grabbing the acetate, pressing it into the ink pad, and then onto the goddess. The purple was quite a bit more opaque than the blues, so I really only needed a little bit of that. And that's what she looks like now. I love it. I love the randomness of it. And using this technique, every piece you create will be a little bit different. Then I'm going to bring back the journal and see what else I need to add to her. She still needs a bit of zhuzhing up, so I think what I'm going to do is use some of the chiffon that I put onto the cover. I'm going to take some very thin strips that I've torn from it and add those onto the side of her, just again for a bit of interest. The next thing to figure out is how to attach those chiffon pieces to her, and so I have this Madeira thread that I managed to pick up at the op shop. It's a really gorgeous dark purple colour with some metallic running through it, and I simply wrapped that around the top of those chiffon pieces and then around her waist, and left the ends of it to hang down the side of her like this. She still needed something else, so I found a leaf sequin that I had in my stash. I picked these up secondhand, probably at an op shop also, which had really beautiful colours and matched perfectly with the colour scheme of this cover. So I just glued that on top and added a tiny bit of bling that you can see here. I think she's looking really good, but she needed a bit more of something. So I grabbed my white gel pen, and I think it's a Ranger gel pen actually, and just wanted to add some highlights to her. And that was just simply a matter of going down one side of her mainly and doing some little scribbles with the white pen, and then a few more in random places. I think that really added to the watery kind of effect and giving her a bit more dimension, which seems to be my favourite word during this video. But anyway, that's how she has turned out, and I am pretty happy with it. And finally, it is time to glue her down. So I just popped a small amount of glue in the corners where that florist textile thing was going, to keep the corners down, and then put a decent amount of glue on the back of the wood and pressed her down into the center of the journal. Now it's time to work on the closure. For this, I'm using this very thin metal bracelet that I picked up at the op shop, of course, and I'm going to use the two ends of it to create a closure for this journal. So I'm just actually managed to use scissors to remove those two pieces because, as I said, the metal is very thin. And then I am going to attach each of those pieces to the front and the back cover. Now I'm going to glue it down, but I also wanted to make sure it was secure, so I'm going to use some thread as well. And to do that, I just made a couple of marks on the cover where I wanted to punch some holes, and used my very old crocodile that I've had for years and still works like a dream to punch some of the smallest holes either side of where that closure is going to go. And then I took the same thread that I used around the waist of the goddess and doubled it over, and I'm going to thread that through the metal piece. A quick tip for when you're wanting to thread something that frays really easily is to get a small amount of glue on your finger. Even a glue stick will work, just something sticky, and twist the ends in the glue. It gives you a nice firm end that won't fray to push through small holes and things like that. So that's what I've done here, and I'm pushing it through the link of this metal piece, and then I'm going to push each end of that through the two little holes that I made in the cover. Now, before I pull that tight and tie it off, I am going to pop some glue onto the metal bit. I really recommend using something like E6000, a really strong glue. I have a knockoff of that, so I'm just using that, but it does hold really well. So I'm just going to pop that onto the clasp bit that I pushed the thread through, and then press that down onto the journal and let it dry for a moment before I flip the journal over and tie off the thread properly. I'm hoping that this will give a really secure hold so that there won't be any problems with the clasp being pulled off with use. So we have come to the end of this video, and I hope you have enjoyed following along with me as I created this cover. I hope to inspire people to think about using things that they might have lying around or that are interesting that you pick up from the op shop and how to use them in different ways. I really love doing stuff like this, and so there'll be many more of these videos to come, hopefully. Thanks so much for bearing with me while I get used to videoing and talking and creating on camera. It's a bit of a journey, and I appreciate you being here with me. Please offer any tips and advice in the comments below, but be kind. I'm still learning and I'm not particularly comfortable with technology yet. So oh, I forgot to say, basically I did exactly the same thing for the front cover as I did for the back cover with the closure, and this is how it turned out. Thanks so much for joining me, and I really hope to see you again. See you next time.